You're listening to the groundbreaking community stream. Hi, this is Q Live and Direct from Delhi. I hope you all are having a good day and taking care of yourself. We are 8 episodes strong, and if you're tuning it for the first time, I'd recommend you to listen to the rest of the episodes. If you've been listening to the stream and have some feedback, can write me a mail mentioned in the podcast description. For today's episode, we have Swagat Rath, who's a product owner at Ather Energy based in the city of Bangalore, India. We'll be talking about his journey in the field of design and also about his journey with Ather Energy. Welcome to the show, Swagat. What's up, man?
Hey Deepak, how are you?
Good, good. What's up? I saw some really nice pictures today. Did you go for a ride or something?
Oh yeah. Actually, one of our friends got his new. He bought a bike, the first gen hypermotard, which actually most of us keep drooling on, like have been drooling on for a long time. In fact, it was we a lot of us actually in the group had that bike as a poster in our room, when we were little kids. So to have that in the group right now, actually get to see it in flesh, ride it, it's a nice experience. So he got it yesterday. He got delivered yesterday. So we just thought we'll just go out for a small, quick breakfast ride.
Right. It definitely looked beautiful.
Oh yeah, it rides better than it looks. So, and to find a Ducati that has been well kept is also quite rare. So it was a lucky find. We're very jealous of him.
Yeah, by the look of your face, I can really see that you really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, let's start with your design journey, Swagat. I think you did engineering before you started in the field, and I think you also spent some time working as an engineer.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Why would you say that?
No, unfortunately for me, because that wasn't my calling. I realized it only after actually going through that journey. So I was a little late to realize, sort of the tube light, I guess. But
you still managed to work for a really nice brand, I think. So it's
yeah, I guess so. Like that was a good
Renault, right? If I'm not
that was a good part about. Sorry.
Yeah, Renault, right?
Yeah. I was with Renault's R&D center. Actually, I did my engineering, and then I actually first got placed at TCS for a software role, and I was doing mechanical engineering, and I was really worried after the placements. Everybody was very happy. I was really worried because I didn't know in fact I knew कि अगर इधर गया तो फिर it won't be for very long that I'll have a job, because I had no clue about what is going to happen there, right? Like, and I had absolutely no interest also there.
So what happened? What happened that which made you make a decision that okay, you want to do design?
No, in fact, it was so after this, there was Renault who had come for campus placements to our college, and I got through that luckily. And then I joined Renault in 2008. And I was with Renault for almost around 2 years. Unfortunately, the time that we joined was also the time of the recession. So and this R&D center, the India wing, was fairly new at that point in time. It had just started a couple of years, I think, into it being functional, and hence there was not much work that was happening at that R&D center.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't the greatest of the times there. So nothing was moving forward. We were not learning new things, and that actually triggered. Okay, if you want to get like to some place in life, you've got to start thinking a little ahead, right?
Yeah.
So that's when, and this so I had sort of inclination towards the creative side of things, during from early on in my life, but then we never had that exposure. So I never knew that there was a discipline like design that you could pursue, right? Like I had no clue about that. But then when I was in Renault and I was looking at options, like I was thinking of doing MBA kar lena hai kya, like because bhed chal. So everybody is doing MBA, so I'll also do MBA.
Yeah.
But then somehow I had friends, the right kind of friends, and some of them then through them I got to know about industrial design, and then there's different colleges in India and what all is there outside. I started to sort of then got introduced to Scott Robertson and all these guys who were doing stuff like who you could follow and learn from, right? And that sort of then gave me an introduction to the field of design, right? And that's when I had started sort of filling out forms for all these competitive exams, and that somehow got to know about DSK ISD, and then I sort of got through that. And ideally, I would have wanted to probably. I was thinking at that point in time, I was thinking maybe NID or seed. I should wait for it, give it another chance or something. But then I so desperately wanted to get out of Renault at that point in time that I was like, okay, like this sounds good enough. We'll give it a try. And it clicked. I was lucky enough to be at DSK ISD at its prime because unfortunately, how things went, that institute could never fulfill its full potential, right?
Yeah.
It was only like it went south very quickly, which is very sad. But then like we got to witness it during its prime, which was really great because it was a great place to be. uh, it opened our eyes in so many ways, so much exposure, and not just in terms of having things to learn from an industrial design, that subject point of view, but then since there were people coming from outside of the country also, so it was a great cultural mix as well to experience like people experience and be with other people from other countries and all. So it was a really good experience. There were so many master classes and all that kept happening. So that time was really good. Actually, DSK ISD's time when we were there, 2010 to 2013, I think it was one of the best times of my life. I really enjoyed that time.
How was it
It
for
was
you?
crazy and hectic as hell, but then
Yeah, how was it? How
it
was it
was
for you? I mean, like switching from engineering to uh, kind of a totally different field. How was it for you?
so. I remember first day of Philippe I, who was then the head of studies there at DSKSD. I remember the first day we all get into this. There was this common lecture, and then he drew this graph for us. Okay, in which he showed कि ऐसा this is x-axis, y-axis. So this is where foundation lies. This is where year 3 lies, right? And then people who joined at foundation, unko they have to go linearly to that year 3 wala mark because there's certain level of skill sets that you need there. But we had joined directly in advanced course without being in the foundation course. So there's this curve which goes like this, and we had to sort of. He said your starting point is here, so you don't have any time to sort of you know come to terms with things. You just have to put your head down, put your blinders on, and just keep working. That's what we did, and yeah, it was insanely hectic. I've never been uh, pushed to the limit so much after, like before DSK or after DSK, but then it was very well worth it. I think it was great times.
Yeah, I
We
think
enjoyed that time.
I think the good part about that is that when you are in the industry, it doesn't feels like that. Okay, maybe this is not something I signed up for, or maybe I'm not able to work this much. And comparatively, I think the job was kind of easier than our life back in college to a limit, at least in my case for some time. But it's too early to say.
Yeah, job professional life ka stress is like at another level. That is something else. But then when I see some people complaining about sometimes you do come across people कि अरे यार आज रात को 8 बजे 9 बजे तक I had to be at office. I was working. I was like हाँ ये normal life था बॉस 3 साल के लिए हमारे लिए. 8 9 o'clock was early. Like you got off early. That's how it was. So it actually did well for us because now working that extra mile or going that extra mile, putting in that extra effort just comes in naturally for DSK students. I think that's one of the advantages that you have. I think, and in fact, it happens at most of the design schools. I think because most majority of the people are there because they enjoy and they really wanted to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
So there's no like nobody thinks twice before saying, okay, I'll pull an all-nighter and do stuff, right? So I think that way is it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm guessing that that's how it is, like
Yeah,
from what I've heard from my
definitely.
friends as well.
It's very self-driven for sure. I mean, like in order to
Exactly.
make a career in a creative field as in itself is a big task. Unlike how it looks to other people, right? They think that okay, design might be a piece of cake for some, but yeah, you have to spend those hours, those hard hours on paper.
हाँ, क्या ही करना है, ड्राइंग करना है ना, हो जाएगा, सबको यही लगता है.
Yes.
अरे what changes, you go sketch करके ले आते हैं, 2 दिन में हो जाएगा, like ठीक है बस. बट उसके लिए 5 साल जो मरवाई है.
Definitely. So I think you also managed to I think take your first internship in also a really nice design studio. I forgot the name. It was in right.
That was my second internship. My first internship, it was like the year we joined the college. It was for us the third year.
Yeah.
In fact, this is an interesting story, I think, for you also, because I was one of the first people who interviewed at VPLP. Okay.
Yeah.
And I got through. But what happened was, so they're this yacht design company, right? Like, and
it's a yacht design.
One yacht is like, ek saal ka revenue is done sort of a thing,
yeah.
Right? And they were about to start a project which got cancelled. And the cancellation happened after they had confirmed me for internship. So I had a very, then like while I was happy and then I was preparing to apply for visa and everything, I get this very sad call from there. See, the project has been cancelled. We won't be able to afford you. You can still come over here. We can give you an unpaid internship, which was never going to be, like, because it's so expensive to have an unpaid internship Europe. I couldn't think of it. So it was a heartbreak moment. And then I had and I was also then late in applying for other places because I had then given up because my internship was fixed. So then I got through this design studio in Chennai called Centroid. And under Mr. Ramesh Manikam, he's the founder of Centroid Studio. He was one of the people who was instrumental in designing the first gen Royal Enfield Thunderbird.
Oh.
So he was earlier working with Royal Enfield and then he had started his own studio. So I was with him for 6 months. It was a great learning experience. I did nothing close to, and at that point in time, I wanted to be in the automotive domain itself. It was very clear in my head. That's the reason I got into design. But then I had the entire 6 months, I didn't touch one automotive project. I think I did one rendering project, which was of some heavy vehicles for DAF or someone, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But other than that, it was we did projects on medical equipment for Renault's, the ballpoint pen, this thing. So it was an interesting period. It was like great learning, and like that's when I realized that doing something apart from automotive could be fun as well. Right? So it was a good time there. And then during my 5th year of internship is when I got to this design studio called Aether. It's based out of Turin.
Yeah.
They work majorly for Audi, Lamborghini, and a few other of the German brands actually. So that's where I did my final internship, which was in 2013.
Yeah, it's a great. I've been to Turin. It's a really nice place for sure.
Oh, it's a lovely place. Yeah, absolutely.
How is the work culture? And I think this was the first time you also
work culture was pretty chill. Italians are damn like they're like, I think, distant cousins of Indian people only. So
yeah, they definitely have this family culture, right? Like cooking.
Yeah, they have family culture. They have lazy culture as well. All the sarkari work will never happen there. So I still remember I'd gone and I was told this very specifically. Ki, the moment you land, you have to apply for this permiso di soggiorno, which is like a residence permit of sorts, right? that the moment you land, you have to apply for it. Without it, it is going to get difficult. You won't be able to travel outside of Italy and all if you want to, right? And inside it, like within Italy also, like if you want to open a bank account and all, it won't happen without that. So I land, in 2 days I joined the office, and then next day I took someone from there to help me out, because there nobody understands English if you go to their uh, government offices and all, right? I went there, stood in line. She helped me. There was this girl named Sarah. She helped me in filling everything out, and we submitted. Everything came till today. It's been 8 years. Till today, that document has not arrived. That document didn't arrive for the entire duration of my stay there. I went to a couple of other countries from Italy without having the need to show any kind of documentation. Bank account bhi ho gaya, sab ho gaya. Like
I can understand why did you compare it with the Indian culture.
Exactly. So Udar pe is like pretty chill. In fact, that uh, for the first month when I'd gone there, I think it was the summer vacation time. So, and everything used to close down at 5 o'clock in the evening. And I was like, shit, मैं गाँव में आ गया क्या इधर? This is very strange, because you knew, like I'd heard Turin to be like a big city and all, but everything used to close down at 5, 6. Even some of the most of the restaurants would close down by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I was like, shit, okay, this is life. Ab kya kar sakte hain? And then suddenly, after month and a half, I'm traveling through your tram to the office, and it's just jam packed. There's huge amount of crowd. Like there's too many people, which I was not used to by then.
Yeah, maybe the peak hours.
So no, but I was traveling during peak hours before that also. Right? It's been a month and a half. So I thought that maybe kuch event ho raha hai, like there's some event or there's some, because there used to be concerts and all, or football matches when people from outside would come in or something, right? I would go back to office and I was like, Arey, this too much crowd. What was the scene? Like, is there something? Maybe I'll go and check it out as well. They're like, nahi, abhi summer vacation got over. No, so people are now back to the city. So this is how it normally is. So before that, nobody was there in the city. Only people, Janta had absconded. Like, everybody goes to the coast and they're there. So it was like that. So they're pretty chill. Even Fridays is like only 2 o'clock. But it was nice. Like you said, that family culture is quite good. And the studio was also like a few people only. So it was, there used to be someone or the other who'd get food from home. So everybody would eat together. So it was a nice time.
What was the kind of project you were doing?
So Udar, I was working mostly on, I'd done quite a few wheel rims, a couple for Audi, 2 for Lamborghini. These didn't go into production, but a lot of them actually were for their internal concepts, which then didn't get selected and all like that. And then there was one small exterior project, which was the side door for an Audi, which I was not told the name of the vehicle. And then I did my personal project on the side, which eventually became my graduation project, because I was not allowed to show any of the other work outside. So that's how those 6 months went.
Was it something that you hoped for, or you maybe targeted for back when you were working there?
As in, like doing a graduation project there?
No, the whole experience. Like, was it something you maybe hoped for in college to go or to work for?
Oh yeah. So I really wanted to go outside of the country. More than the work, it was about experiencing a new culture, right? And staying alone in a new country, I think that's an experience that everybody should have. Yeah. Because it's a great learning experience. And whether you're working, whether your job, whatever you're working on is great or not, irrespective of that, I think it's a great learning experience which everybody should have. So it was really nice from that angle. It was really good. Even the work was good. So overall, it was a great experience for me. So yeah, I think more from experiencing another culture, another place, like getting used, right, from getting used to the food to getting used to the people, what they care about, like things that might be okay for us here in India, but then are in completely different contexts there. So it's nice to sort of understand those kind of things in
Definitely.
life. So it was a great experience.
I also kind of remember multiple culture shock back in Paris. So yeah, it definitely can be sometime intimidating when you're going there for the first time. Also as a student, and where you have to take care of yourself and know your food and other stuff. So I think that's also a really great of a deal, and you learn so many.
Right. Absolutely.
And
In fact,
this
mera
is
to like
also the first
you,
time where you're open to the industry. Yeah.
yeah. And for me, though, it was like I wasn't. I was paid okay. Like okay, matlab below average, ही, 600 euro. Okay. And like an idiot, I was like, nahi, hum to like if I've gone there, I'll stay center of the city. I want to experience the city and all. 600 euro में से 400 euro gone rent.
Yeah.
So 200 euro में you have to now get your month's worth. But that was it was stressful, but it was nice. Like, but it was a nice experience.
On the edge. Yeah, it was on the edge for sure.
On the edge, absolutely.
Uh, so after this, you had any like what were your plans? What kind of state of mind you were in? Okay, where you wanted to work outside, or the kind, or maybe how was your reaction to the automotive industry, or maybe did it fascinated you more towards it?
So automotive industry, yes, it fascinated me more. I was always inclined towards that. Right. I think even after college, it was mostly like uh, y- that that uh, that it's a little more glamorous, at least to us, when
Yeah.
you see cars and then you see designers presenting it and all that stuff. So you're more or less sort of influenced by that to a huge extent, and that I've seen with most of the people, right?
Yeah.
So it's only when you start actually doing hardcore work in the industry is when you understand the intricacies of things and like how an entire product is put together, right? What we end up seeing is the final result, which obviously blows your mind all the time, right? And then that's what you think, "Kyare," like, so every time you start working, you always are thinking about that
The final thing.
end result kya hone wala hai. So, but you sort of understand the journey behind it only when you're in the industry, and that's when you start understanding the different aspects of putting together an entire product, and so that came in much later for me. So initially it was this whole like automotive scene was always glamorous, and then cars and bikes is what we grew up admiring. So obviously I wanted to be in the automotive space itself, right? And I when I came back from assisted, they had told me that if you want to come back, do come back. We'll figure out. Getting a work permit there was difficult at that time, but then they said
It still
we'll
is.
figure it out somehow.
I think it still is.
Yeah, it is always tricky
I
there.
know a
So
bunch of people who are still struggling for a visa in Italy and Germany.
right. It is like a Russian
Because of
roulette
the,
only. Like you roll your dice and you either get it you or you don't, sort of a thing.
it has definitely gotten worse because of COVID. But yeah,
COVID,
even
like
for us Indian students trying to make a break into design field and getting that internship, getting that job out there in Europe is is a task in itself, right? First, you have to get that skill level. Then you have to
right,
compete with people applying in the same brand at that time.
right.
And then even after getting the opportunity, you're not able to go there just because of that one piece of paper can be really frustrating
Yeah,
to
it's
look at.
frustrating for sure.
And I think all of
It's
us has.
frustrating for sure. Also, what is interesting to point out here is that like सबका यूरोप जाने का ही मन है. मतलब everybody. So it is a combination of this whole love for automotive and then दिल दिल वाले दुल्हनिया ले जाएंगे as like seeded this के Europe is this like amazing place, and so as many other movies I like. But I'm saying like that's what like people look up to Europe, right? Like, but if you look at if you really want to do good work and to learn a lot, there's so many other places where you can be at as well. There's China, there's Japan, um, there's of course US. There's also competition is fierce, but then there are multiple places where you can go outside of India, experience a new culture, work, learn everything, but at different place. But Europe ka thoda sa, it has slight edge because of Shah Rukh Khan, I think. But I don't know. Uh, so that's the thing, and that's how it was for us also. Like everybody wanted to be Europe mein internship chahiye yaar ek to karke. So
Even
that's how it was for
I can
everyone, I
relate
guess.
to it. I can totally relate to it because I think there was one more reason for that. Could be uh, like, like there were a lot of people from France in our college. So maybe we used to chill with them and used to share a kind of
Now,
vibe with them. Maybe
that
that was
that
also
that
another
also that yeah, that also, because you hear so many stories. But I, on a serious note, I also feel it is because then there's, especially for a person who's into automotive space, there's Ferrari, there's Audi, there's Lamborghini, all these like great brands are there, right? Which Ducati is from there. So there's so many great brands there, which sort of then you also feel ki, okay, if I go there, maybe it opens up doors for me to sort of eventually work there or something, right? So of course that is the practical side of things as well.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of a little sad that we also don't get good enough opportunities in our own country, but not at this moment. I think really interesting things are happening. Brands like Aether is coming up. Let's talk about Aether, man. I think before reaching out to you and I was just talking to a bunch of my friends. You would know them,
Mhm.
and they were really we were talking about Aether and how we all were so impressed about what they've been doing in the market. So tell us about your story, Swagat. How is it for you? I think you joined when it was just growing. I don't know. I'm really clueless about it.
I joined when it was still small enough to know everyone, because I was the 51st employee for Aether.
Yeah.
Okay. It was still a small group of people. These guys had just moved out. So this was started in Chennai. IIT Chennai has an incubation cell for startups.
Yeah.
So the founders, both Tarun Mehta and Swapnil Jain, both are from IIT Chennai and IIT Madras. So, and these guys were based out of the incubation cell there, and they just raised the seed fund at that point from uh, Series A from Tiger Global, and that was the first big round of money that these guys raised, and they just shifted now to Bangalore, and we were working out of, when I joined, when I interviewed for them, it was out of a house based in Indiranagar. Uh, so it was still in a house where we had to go, and for me it was great because so for how this opportunity came by also was very interesting, because I was working in GM at that time. And then GM, it was nice. Like I had no such complaints in the kind of work that I was getting there. I was in the concept modeling group and not in the class A work. So uh, there was a lot of labor intensive work that there's a lot of labor intensive work that happens at GM, which is uh, so a lot of class A work that happens. So which is very monotonous. At least to me, it is like that. For some other person, it might work or it might click or they might enjoy doing that. But to each his own. For me, that was not the kind of work that I wanted to do. And luckily enough, I was given the kind of work that I'd be excited doing, right? So I was in the concept modeling group there, working with the creative team of there. And actually, to give credit where it's due, GM, the learning curve was huge. The learning curve for me at GM was huge. So I had a couple of great mentors like I'd like to point out Manohar, and then there was my boss's boss Sachidanand Hegde, and then shit, I'm forgetting my boss's name, Bala. So he was there. So these guys were really had a great influence on my work, like proper 3D modeling, class A work, these guys actually, I got to know there what class A actually means and what it takes to sort of do that kind of surfacing, right? And also in terms of how to interpret sketches, how to get the volumes right, why is it important to get the volume right, how much of a difference it can make into getting the feel of the sketch right, right. So that those intricacies, I think I owe it to GM, because it is because of my time there that I got good at what I was doing, right. And then eventually what happened was that studio was also not doing well, and then they had to sort of stop the work. The concept modeling team entirely had to stop, and then we were then put into the class A work, and I was doing working on rims at that time, and that I was not okay with. I was uh, A, the work was not exciting. B, I wasn't sort of creating the kind of impact that I'd want to create with my work, and I didn't see any opportunity for that to happen in the near future as well. So I was generally looking at options, figuring out things on what can be done. And our creative studio ka head at that time in GM, Abhishek Kumar, he actually, so we knew each other, like, because we were in the same office and we used to talk and all. So he knew that I was not exactly into the kind of work that I was doing, and he was confident of my potential as well. And then he was one of the sort of visiting advisors for Aether at that point, from a design perspective, because Swapnil was also working in GM for a brief amount of time before going with Aether full time, right? So Abhishek used to go there sometimes, and then they told that they had such and such a requirement. Okay, unko us samay they wanted a 3D modeler at that point, some alias guy. And then Abhishek is the one who then introduced me, Are, there's this company, chota hai, but then you might enjoy working there. I was like, okay, we'll give it a try. And I went, and it was just like a 5-bedroom house, जिसमें the एक bedroom meeting room है, बाकी सब people are there. There was just like one crude prototype that was there at that time. One working prototype was there, and I'd seen it. I had not even gotten a chance to ride it, but I seen. But the vibe of the place was so nice, because uh, you could feel that everybody really cared about what they were working on, whether it was the guy who was working on sourcing of material, whether it was the engineering team, whoever was working, you could really feel that they care deeply about what they're making, and that was really nice. And that usually you,
Yeah, I think that's also the reason why it has grown so much. And
I guess so. I
as
guess
you
so, because
mentioned that,
people.
yeah, as you mentioned that there was this visiting person who used to go there for design, who was
Hmm.
already working in a really nice brand. So seeing that, I mean, Aether had an idea about, okay, they have to keep design in mind, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. So even before me, the designer of 450, Shantanu Jogi, is an ex TVS guy. He's passed out from IDC Bombay, right? So he was on board before me. He was one of the, like, even earlier employees. I think he was the ninth or 10th employee, if I'm not wrong. So he's been there in the from the beginning. So a lot of credit goes to him also, in order to sort of hold fort and tell people and educate people also of the importance of design, right? Because that laid a solid foundation. And then I came board, and we sort of uh, we had the same kind of wavelength of looking at things, similar tastes and similar outlook towards things, and how we'd want to develop the design team within Aether as well, right? So all those things came together. That's when I joined, and then eventually we raised a couple more rounds of funding, and then we moved on to like another bigger office in Victoria layout, and then eventually to our current office, which is there in IBC, near Dairy Circle, right? So that's how it is now. We're like almost close to 600, 700 people. So it's grown fairly large. We have a huge factory which is set up in Hosur. So mm, and we've gotten a great response to the first couple of products that we put out. It has found a great product market fit. People are really happy with the product that they've received and the way it works and the way you experience the kind of experience that comes along with the product. So things have been good from that point in time, like from that point of view.
Yeah, like as we all been seeing what Aether has been doing, how much they keep design in mind when it comes in terms of business, in terms of developing a business, in terms of maybe getting those people, how much they've been looking at design. Because I think as a spectator, it looks that they've on every step they've really focused on design, because they also really have a good communication design and also a good website. So have they
Yeah, yeah.
really been doing it for
So,
so long, and how much they keep in mind the design part of it in terms of their business?
see, like design is at the forefront of things at Ether. That can be said without a shred of like doubt, right? That's always been the case. In fact, uh, if I tell you, so this uh, so this also happened by chance as well. But the sketch of the 450 was ready before we knew what kind of a scooter we were going to make or what goes into making that scooter, right? So sketch ready ho gaya tha.
Like a vision.
These guys had made a clay also and everything. But then, and then when I came, we did the 3D model and everything, and then we did the soft launch it with Surge. That's when we did the unveil of the product. That's when we first showcased the scooter to everybody else outside of Aether. And from that unveil to today, almost everything inside that went inside the scooter had changed. Okay, but the fact of the matter was we were very specific about this. This was going to be the first product out of Aether, right? As Aether as a company, this was the first product that was going out, and we were sort of very adamant on the kind of product that we wanted to put out and the way we wanted people to experience it as well, right? In terms of its aesthetics, in terms of what specs it has, in terms of uh, so the entire look and feel, your first impression has to be really strong, right? So there was no deviations that we were going to accept on how it was supposed to look, because we wanted to make a very strong first impression, right? And uh, so the entire engineering of the scooter, in fact, happened around the design, like around the design. It had to sort of meet the design spec that we put together. And what we realized over a period of time, while it worked really well for 450, what we've also realized that yes, it is a great way of doing things for us as designers. That is very liberating. Okay, you then are then leading the front, and then you don't have to compromise. वो engineering देखेगा what क्या करना है, right? But then that's that's not a very pragmatic way of going about things. That's not a right way of going about things also, to a large extent, right? It always, so what we've realized over a period of time is it's always sort of a combination of multiple things, and like the what resources you have and how you sort of want to utilize them to get to a final product. That is what is important, right? That will then choose whether you do this outside in sort of an approach where you design the product first, like the entire aesthetics of it first, and then figure out. So it comes mostly from the requirement of the product, right? Whether you do outside in, inside out, or you do something else, right? When I say resources, I mean the kind of money you have, the kind of time you have, the kind of people you have, right? The number of people you can have working on that project. So it has to be sort of, you've got to optimize for a lot of things and then figure which is the best approach, which is what now which has been a great learning for us, and which we keep applying every day, depending on the kind of projects that we're doing, on what kind. So there's no fixed design approach that Aether has, right? We're very fluid, we're very flexible, and that is what our strength is, I feel, as well. Because of the fact that we're so fluid and flexible, we always sort of find a way which is the fastest to the solution that you want, right? Or the fastest to the outcome. So that becomes a great strength for us. And like, to answer your question, like, design has always been on the forefront of things. We have a great industrial design team. We have a great communication design team, right? And the good thing was, one of the early members. He's not with Aether right now. He's gone now to work on his own startup, which is Arun Vinayak. He was the chief product officer for us at that time, and he was my reporting manager as well. And so, since he was in charge of product for the longest of time, he was also looking at, like, he was the final voice for all the industrial design decisions as well, right? And
Yeah, designer himself? Was he a designer himself?
no, he was not. He was an engineer. He was one of the founding members again of Aether. He was also from IIT Madras only, right? And and that's what I was coming to. That he was not a designer, but he had a great sense of what a product should be. And then I've seen him over a period of time. He understood the fact and accepted the fact that design is a big part of putting a product together, right? And from there onwards, it was his initiative and his this thing, that he learn about design. Okay, what design is, why are things the way they are, form, how much of an importance it is, what kind of a form means what, why are certain visuals the way they are, does form all follows function, is always, is that true, or is this? So he then, like, he spent time himself in sort of educating himself. And because he did that, he sort of then uh, created a culture. We try to educate the rest of the folks around him as well, right? So to a large extent, most of the people in Aether's top management, they also understand the importance of design. It is because of people like uh, Arun, who sort of understood, educated themselves, then educated them as well. And the fact that we were mostly like a small company for a long period of time, there were very frequent interactions with, say, Shantanu, me, or a couple of other people from the design team, with the top management as well, right? Where you sort of try to convince them on how things are supposed to be in terms of, like, when it comes to design, and why should we do it, and why it is the right way of doing things. So they're very well versed, right? So that actually, and in fact, the design thinking then sort of became like a big thing, right? So every project that we do sort of then has this thought process behind it, right? Some level of design thinking is there behind it. So that's how I think that, to a large extent, we've been able to do that so far. Now, how do we, now that we're scaling, so making a, like, very design led product, making a making one is really easy, making 100 is still easy, but when it comes to millions, it becomes difficult. Definitely. Right? That is where you've so now that is where we have to sort of work in a way where we don't lose focus on that. Yeah. Right? While scale, but still have that sort of essence intact.
Yeah, definitely. I think I really liked the thing you talked about when they were growing, like they were learning and unlearning and teaching themselves design. So I think that's also like I read a couple of books about the story of startups. And one thing I found, which was common in all these successful startup stories, was that they were educating themselves on every point, right? And I think that's also the reason why company fails, because they stays rigid and they don't teach themselves things according to the trend line. But yeah, and also the collaboration of people. And do you think they hired the right people? Because from as a spectator and also having friends inside a design team, I can clearly can figure out that there must be some reason why all our design crew is what's the reason behind working there. So I'm sure the it must be a really nice place where maybe ideas can thrive. So
So
how
yeah,
was the
so
environment like? I think
The
there are a bunch
willingness.
of us from our institute, right? If I'm not wrong, from our school.
Yeah, there are a few. So
It's like a mini DSK, right? Right there. Is it?
so I'll start with this. The Like you pointed out, that the willingness to learn is actually really important, and that is one thing that I've experienced the most at Aether, and like that is one of the biggest learning also. There's so many learnings at Aether. This is one of the biggest things. Like you always you always should be prepared, and you should be open at working outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
जो नहीं आता है, like you figure it out somehow, because in a startup you have limited people, limited resources, right? So it's not always that you'll find the right person for the right thing. You'll always, but if you have people who are willing to learn and take that initiative and then make an effort to sort of get the job done, you found the right person. उस समय, if he has the right skill set or not, I think the willingness to learn something and then sort of improvise and work on it and get things done, that trumps over any specific skill set in my book, at least from my experience at Aether. That sort of comes above everything else, right? And that brings me to the next question, this putting people together also, right? So that actually, that kind of attitude and culture fit, we are very careful in picking the kind of people that we want to work with, because we want to have that kind of a mindset with everybody who comes along, right? And it is very important for us to sort of click at these kind of levels, rather than finding the person with the best sketches or with the best rendering, right? Because those are things that you can probably learn over a period of time. That's not a big deal, right? And it's about ideas, right? Like design is also about ideas. You sketch, rendering, these are mediums to get your ideas to paper, put your ideas across in the most effective way, right? It can happen through sketch, it can happen through renderings, it can happen through 3D modeling, it can happen through clay modeling, it can happen through origami, it can happen through anything, right? But as long as you have the right people with the right idea and this willingness to learn new stuff, go outside of the comfort zone, be comfortable when put in the spot, right? And then still deliver. I think that is really important. In fact, if you look at the kind of bigs that we have within the design team at Aether also, right? We have industrial designers, we have like the alias modelers who are now designers there, we have clay modelers who are now designers there, we have people from the fashion industry, people who are working who graduated from NIFT and were working in backpack companies earlier. We have people coming from product design background. We have people coming from who are now working on UX, but were earlier part of the VFX industry. Like we have someone who's won an Oscar for Life of Pi, right? So so he was part of the Oscar-winning team for Life of Pi, Anurag Bhattade. So he's part of the team. He's now taking care of UX. We have UI people. So it's a very sort of diverse mix of people. But what it does is it brings in interesting ideas, because of the kind of background that everybody has, their take on things, their way of getting things done, their approach to things. There's so much learning there. It's a great place to be at. And what we've been able to do is over the last, like I've been with Aether for around 6 years now, right? Like I just completed 6 years. So in the last 6 years, we've grown to what, like a 13, 14 people team. At max, we were at around 15, 16 people. It's very close knit, right? And the fact that we spend so much time in sort of picking the right people because we want that kind of a wavelength match goes on to show, because it's a very close knit group of people, and that then showcases in your work, right? Because you want to sort of trust the person. In fact, with smaller teams, trust becomes very important. Like once you know that somebody is working on something, you know that that person will get the job done, so you can spend time on something else, right? So that trust is now building that trust, having like faith in each other's abilities and their outlooks. And that doesn't mean that everybody is a yes man and that everybody agrees on everything. The fact कि इतना diversity है background में, there's other time there's a disagreements only, right? But you've got how you move ahead while having those disagreements is the thing, right? And not sort of lose trust on each other still.
Yeah.
So that will come only when you're like a like very close form personal bonds as well to a certain extent, right? So that's very important, and that's going to be a challenge for us going forward also, because now we've got to expand the team as well, right? At some point in time, whenever we do that, that's going to be an important uh, sort of phase for us on, again, how we find the right people. So in fact, so we have what I am there from DSK. I got on board Tamil Anbu from he was my batchmate. Then we got Ritain. In fact, Ritain's was very interesting because Ritain Gojia was we had conversations, and then everybody sort of knew because I had introduced them to the work, so they'd like the work. We met him, we liked interaction with him also, but then that kept happening. Some 7-8 months later is when again we started that conversation, and then again it was like a 3-4 months process. So like after meeting, it took almost a year for him to join. That was multiple reasons. But then we have another junior of ours, Dipanjan Sinha, who's been a great find, right? And we really appreciate his work as well. So he's doing really, really well. And that's what, like, it's the wavelength is also sort of matched, right? So it's really nice to have that. Uh, so that's what, like, how we grow the team now is also going to be important. And the fact that nobody is like, Udar, in our industrial design team, there are some 3-4 engineers also. Okay. So the kind of place that we'd want that team to be, or the kind of mind space we want them to be, is like, as long as you have creative ways of doing things, finding solutions, you are at the right place, right? Now how we get to the ideas, how we translate those ideas, that's another thing, right? Maybe you'll have certain strengths in, so you might sit, your work might be more prototyping heavy, but everybody has a say at when things are getting done, right? In fact, our head of design right now, uh, Bikash, he's not an industrial designer by profession. He's not an industrial designer by qualification, but he has that. He's the best. I wouldn't think of anybody else within Aether now for that job, because so, it's because of the kind of work that you have. I think that's what design also does, right? Like, you, as long as your portfolio is strong, you're the right person, right? Yeah. So baki, like, whether you college se pass out kya and all that doesn't matter, right? So that's how it is. That's the kind of uh, mindset we've taken here as well, wherein, like, it's about your approach to problem solving. If that's creative enough for us, and we have like good match of wavelength in terms of our thoughts, and it, I'm actually, batch is not the word, but even if there's disagreement, you're able to justify it. Like, we're not against people ki, Arey, yeah, like, this guy doesn't like what I like, so yeah. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is like a good fit.
That's
right?
very
Like,
so
we find into the young sort of a
maybe finding a common ground in disagreements, and maybe
exactly
focusing on one thing, like working towards one goal while having disagreements and fixing them on
exactly. So that's what
yeah, that's, I think, leading to a question which was also recommended by few of my friends. The basic tips to the people trying to maybe go into Aether and maybe applying. What is an ideal portfolio to get hired in Aether?
There's no ideal portfolio to get hired at Aether. Best is send in our work, as long as you have an interesting personality and that shows in your portfolio, we're like all game, right? That's what that is what it is like. And see, there are things that okay, what this is like a general message for everyone, not just on like a ticket to Aether of sorts, but generally, see, certain trends. You you don't, when you look at a portfolio, you don't want to see stuff that has been done by 100 other people as well, right? You've got to have that one thing that, Arey, nobody thought about it, this is interesting, right? So you got to come from there. Surprise is great. Like, if you can pull off a uh, great surprise, it's really, because that is what registers sort of remembrance, right? Otherwise, there's so much of good work out there today. It is very hard to sort of get lost in that sea of portfolios of things, right? Yeah. But if you surprise, that's where you can sort of be slightly different from others, and do something about it. And that's about it. We're just looking for like interesting people to hang out with at Aether. I think that's the best way to put things, because for us that becomes that becomes very important. Yeah. Because also the fact that why this is also important is because it's such a small team, and the kind of work that we're putting getting done is, if you look at other OEMs, there's a group of 50, 60 people who's pulling off that kind of work, right? So you end up spending a lot of time together at office doing work, right? So if you don't have that chemistry, it gets very difficult to get work done, right? So that's why, like, it's really important that you really get along with the people that you're hiring as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point, and also the point that we talked about, like how personal identity or personal impact is important in your portfolio. So I think that is also one thing, one main thing we should keep in mind while building portfolios, right? Swagat, what do you think most of the OEMs in India, just let's just be specific about design. What is that one thing in these OEMs, automotive OEMs, which they are not doing right? And maybe which is, it's a tough question. I'm just letting you know it's a tough question, because this is also one of the reason which leads us to go outside and maybe reach out to studios which are abroad. What are the things they've been doing wrong? If not as the whole thing, maybe yeah, they are selling cars, they are earning a lot, but I think they still there's a lot of things we need to talk about in our design industry. Do you want to talk about some pointers?
See, yeah, I'll answer this. This probably will not help me with my employability beyond Aether, but anyways, I'll have a stab at it. But see, there's a lot to talk about here, right? And generally, we've design as a culture. We've it started well, and it started way back, right? But somehow it became stagnant. It never sort of developed or like evolved over a period of time. There was a great period of being just stagnant, right? And that sort of hurt us. What has also happened is, I'd want OEMs. This is one thing I really want OEMs, like, generally. I hope we don't fall into that category anytime soon. I'm sure we will not. But then a lot of hardcore design work is not done here, right? Most of the hardcore design work gets done elsewhere, right? What you end up doing here is mostly sustenance works or facelifts, or then class A work. So a lot of labor intensive work gets done here. What it also does is, it's not like there's a dearth of good talent here. Yeah. It's just that uh, since most of the work, the hardcore design work is getting done elsewhere, there's a lot of inertia and then the kind of work that people do here, right? There's a lot of inertia that gets built in, right? And then when you want to get the specific design work get done here, it becomes difficult for people to get over that inertia and sort of get into that uh, design student sort of a mindset of sorts, right? So that's what is missing, I think, right? And uh, we should spend a little more time and give a little more opportunity. I think that is happening to a large extent. It is happening in the last 2 3 years. Things have been changing. From what I've been hearing from people, like there are companies, there are OEMs who are getting things done here as well, right? Also, to a large extent, right? Most of the automotive OEMs, at least in India, are fairly are fairly product led. Or when I say product led, what I mean is like they're all about specs, features. हाँ ये feature है, ये spec है, and then you do a comparison between different products. So, Indian mentality भी वैसे हो गया कि you do then make them compare on basis specs, basis features. अच्छा ये, and that's the kind of mindset that is that's the kind of mindset that most of the Indian OEM space uh, has, right? Wherein like you want to sort of be in a direction where it is more nobody is doing any storytelling, nobody is creating a brand as such, right? Maybe our Royal Enfield has done a great job at that, right? So nobody else is doing that. Maybe there are small brands that have formed over a period of time organically with something like a Thar or something, right? But other than that, this it's just हाँ ये सेगमेंट में इतना फीचर वाला ये गाड़ी हमने बनाया है, so by us, right? So that's the extent of it. Nobody is going beyond that. There's no interesting narrative that is being put out there by any of the Indian OEMs, right? Barring say Royal Enfield, I'd say, correct.
Yeah,
So that is sort of limiting for designers as well, right? Because then you like, हाँ अब commuter ही बनाना है, okay. So it's not like there's nothing interesting can be done in the commuter space, but when you are approaching a product from the point of view ke, these are the checklist points I have, these should be tick marked, and you design a product around it. It's a heavily constrained space to be in, right? There's not much creative liberty around it, correct? Rather than if you say okay, you design now the next Splendor ka alternate replacement. If you throw in a open brief like that, that becomes a far more interesting project. The outcome will definitely be more interesting. But if you say ke acha Splendor mein these things work, so we'll have these things, it has to be these specs, so it has to meet these requirements because our existing customers are using it for this only, and now you design. So that becomes like a very limiting sort of this thing. So that outlook of giving some level of freedom to design, and in fact coming to a place where a lot of product decisions are made by the design team or the product team rather than uh, heavily being influenced from the marketing side, the marketing team's this thing is important. Because so both of these, yeah, so see, it's not that team has any less importance of anything, right? Like you still have to sell a product that you make, right? And marketing is actually like you can't make sales without a great marketing team, so you need them, right? Now to what level do you want an intersection of the marketing and design team, and where should sort of product decisions be flowing from, is the decision that needs to be made, like, and that needs a correction in most of the Indian OEMs from whatever limited experience that I have. That's what I think. And this is the reason why a lot of great talent that is there, it's not like companies in India don't have great talent. Like they have some amazing talent, like one of the best talents that you'd find, any like world class, as good as compared to anywhere else in the world, right? Like there'll be people there, but then they're just not getting the opportunity to sort of, or that creative liberty to work with freedom and sort of showcase that.
Yeah, Swagat, you really, I really picked two things from what you said. One was that the companies, maybe the brands, are not innovating enough, and the storytelling part of it. So I think I second that. Storytelling is also a part on a bigger level where maybe the design industry is not talking about, especially in automotive field, and also the economic as India is a very big population of middle class people, um, products like Splendor, for example, when you have I think I can be wrong. I think when you're making an economic product like Splendor, in that economic product, you have to maybe spend a little more time into the design process than just making it cheaper, which maybe also which they are not following, because they're just trying to make it cheaper. But at the same time, since it's an economic product and a really big population will be using it, you need to put a lot of thinking into design, which is also, I think, has not been done, because there hasn't been much changes into the economic products of automotive sector, like a blender a bike like Splendor and stuff like that, where Aether maybe has uh, broke that box where you had a certain thinking about okay, how maybe an e-scooter could look like. So that's where I think Aether kind of disrupted the whole thing. So what do you think at this moment, if maybe someone wants to create a brand like Aether, what do they have to keep in mind? It might sound like a random question, but I'm sure, because because as we speak, there are a number of people trying to make their ways into e-scooters and e-motorbikes, and also considering a scenario of automotive scenario in next few years, more players will be fighting on one platform. What do you think about it?
See, like the splendid example that you gave, like uh, that cheaper products need to be made and stuff, right? Like most of the OEMs think that, or most of the people think that. So, Abhi, recently we had like we had a like we were working on some project, and we were working with our CEO Tarun, right? And then there was this interesting conversation happened, and then he made a very interesting point. Okay, that uh, which I feel is absolutely true, and people need to realize this. Okay, that सबको लगता है, everybody thinks that Indians want cheap products, right?
Yeah, that's
But if you look true. At
that's actually
no,
not
so
true.
so if you look at it with examples, right?
Yeah.
When Activa came in, it was not the cheapest scooter in the market.
Yeah.
By far, it wasn't the cheapest, right? But it still did well. It became cheap because of the economies of scale.
Yeah.
The scale that it received eventually sort of got to, it became cheaper. When Pulsar came in, which is one of the like most sort of sold motorcycles, I think that India has seen, it was not the cheapest product, right? But it still did well,
Yeah.
right? So it is. See, there are 1,000 ways of getting a product cheap. Okay, it will. You can do cost cutting. You can have really creative ways of engineering in which you can achieve the cost target, right? But at the end of the day, you've got to make a connect with your customer, right? Until unless you've done that, कितना भी चाहिए फ्री में भी दोगे तो नहीं लेंगे लोग. If they don't have that connect, right? And most of the purchases that people do, right, like most of our purchases are not very practical, they're emotional, right? You've made the purchase in your head, and after that you'll rationalize it with multiple things जो ad में देखा है वो बोल के, हाँ ये है, so this is the feature, so hence I am taking this, that is why it makes sense. This vehicle is cheaper, so hence I am taking this. So you'll rationalize it later, but these are all emotional decisions, right? It is very important for you to sort of have a connect with your customer at a product level, right? If you've nailed that, then whether you're expensive, whether you're cheap, that doesn't matter. Cheap hai to yes, the initial inertia of making the purchase or initial friction of making a purchase is lower, so it becomes very easy. But even if it is expensive, people, if you've given them a strong enough reason for them to connect, they will sort of, and they'll just need some help from you. And that's where marketing and sales and all these other parts of your organization come into play. They help them make that decision.
Yeah.
right? And they will do it, and that's what, even with the 450, everybody said, okay, it's an expensive scooter,
Yeah.
right? And you might not, it will not do well. I know so many people personally who had left now, who now left Aether elsewhere, good people, but then they didn't have that same amount of confidence with the product because of the fact that it was itna expensive, who will buy it, right? But you'll find it as long, and that's why we've been lucky. We've found a great product market fit, and like we found great resonance with the customers, right? And hence people like it, and they feel that it is worth it. For a lot of people, they then start making calculations, yeah, savings and all these things, everything sort of then eventually comes together and helps us make the sale. And the more we sell it, the better we can do with costs as well, right? So now there's subsidies, but like people are not going to refrain from paying what your product is worth, is the point that I'm trying to make, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be cheap. Some things, yes, I do understand that you've got to play within some realm of some cost, but then even that can be done. You've got to give. So you also sought to understand okay, a lot of these decisions today also, like this is splendor wala हमारा discussion, so we'll just take that for example. That approach is not right because you're saying कि हाँ ये अभी तक काम किया है, so आगे भी काम करेगा because ये बिक रहा है अभी, right? But you look at the world that was there when Splendor was launched in mid 90s, and you look at the world today, it's a completely different world. People, what people want from their life is completely different, right? The kind of life that people are leading is completely different. You can't have a product from that time because it worked then should work now also. That doesn't make sense, right? Because people are not the same, they've evolved. So you've got to sort of, your product has to follow. In fact, the products have to sort of stay a little ahead, right? And you've got to preempt, yeah, how society is going to evolve, how, like, what can, you've got to dig a little deeper, understand what current, तुम्हारे current customer का what needs are there, what is not being met, how can I make his life better while he's using my product, right? Once you've done that, then everything else will fall into place. You'll make that sale, like, once that happens.
Yeah, that's a really fair point, Swagat. Yeah, I think that led to us to the final question is about the industrial design revolution, or just say design revolution. Do you think it's happening as we speak, or it has some time to still hit? Because as you know,
When you
you also mentioned that the world is changing and it's moving so fast, faster than ever, especially in a country where there are a number of things to improve. And because of this pandemic, everything's been lying on a same ground. So do you think it is also making us faster, and maybe we needed this change, or do you think there's still some room for a kickoff, for a design revolution kickoff?
So, see, revolution is too strong a word, yeah. Matlab, and it's too loosely used also these days. So I'm not very, like, to be honest, I'm not very in favor of that. But then I do agree that things are changing at a rapid pace, and COVID, especially last couple of years, has just acted as an accelerator, right?
Yeah.
I like 3 साल पहले, you wouldn't imagine Sabzi Wala to be using Paytm,
Yeah.
right? But that happened quickly, just like that,
Yeah.
correct?
That's a good example.
There was real, so, and then if you would have thought that majority of the Indian students would be learning over internet on online classes and all, you wouldn't have thought that. Like, people would have laughed at you for
Yeah.
saying that. Arey, that is not possible. Only क्या बोल रहे हो तुम,
Yeah.
right? But it happened. People got used to, like, work from home, right? There are companies who are now saying permanent work from home, right? So there's definitely the change of things or the evolution of things has seen acceleration like nothing else, right? So that obviously, and it in turn has now thrown in so many interesting problem statements, which the field of design can do so much with, right? And that's where I think that that's a gold mine today, right? And if anybody wanted to sort of get creative, create a business around things and all, this is like a great time for them, because there's a gold mine of problem statements out there today, which this last couple of years, this whole transition is thrown into the mix, right? So that is, there's so much to do. So I think yes, and the fastest and most effective way of it is going to be through design, right? So I think there's some really interesting problem statements out there which needs uh, which needs, the right kind of creative people to sort of come in and give it a go, and we could see some really interesting the products, solutions, services, everything come out of it. So that's going to be really exciting times ahead for sure.
Yeah, definitely, really, really exciting. If anyone wants to reach out to you, on which platform they should maybe drop a message, or if someone wants to maybe talk to you about
anywhere, I'm reachable. Like social media, I'm like I was never a fan of Facebook, so I'm not there on Facebook like since the very 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 long time. But then I'm there on Instagram. You can sort of drop a message there. And LinkedIn mein hai, so like you can drop a message there, or just if you guys have my number or something. I think my number is public on LinkedIn also. So just drop me a message anytime.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome, Swagat. Thanks for making the time for the podcast. I know that how much for how long we've been talking for this.
Arey, I am at fault for that, for not being very efficient at managing my time. But then that's fine. I'm glad that we were able to do it finally.
Yeah. All right, Swagat. You have a good day. You have a good Sunday.